Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Royal Oak and Nautilus 7-star Godfest exclusive that has just gone live in North America. So, Sunday marks the debut of a special Director's Choice Super Godfest, and that doesn't really mean much, the Director's Choice aspect. Basically, what a Super Godfest means is that there is going to be at least a 33% or 1 in 3 chance of rolling any Godfest exclusives. To make these events a little bit more spicy, they tend to either increase the rates for Godfest exclusives or other favorable, desirable things such as Samurai 3 or the seasonal cards that could be featured. In the case of this Director's Choice Supers Godfest, there is only a 33% chance to acquire any Godfest exclusive, which is as low as you can go. And if your goal is to get Godfest exclusives, this will not be the best place to do so. But on the flip side, the Samurai 3 weapon assists are all featured here, all 5 of them. And 4 out of the 5 are great to own in my opinion. And having these lumped into the rolling pool, including the lesser ideal one, it brings up the good rolls to 40.5%. So the value of this Godfest will definitely hinge on your monster box. For someone like myself, I already have all the Samurai 3 cards on both my accounts, duplicates I think of each of them, so it's much less appetizing because that 7.5% chance of good rolls becomes just another duplicate. But if you are, say, a newer player, it might be a little bit more valuable because, again, those Samurai 3s are some of the best weapon assists, especially when you're just starting out. So, the 2 new Godfest exclusives I want to talk about are Royal Oak and Nautilus. And these 2 Godfest exclusives have a unique transforming kit. Basically, what happens is they need 25 turns to transform the very first time, and then afterwards they have a 6-turn cooldown to transform yet again. And then, once they do so, they will be in their final form. This multi-step transformation aspect is a bit of a drawback because if you enter a dungeon with, say, 25 skill boosts, great, you can transform the first time. But let's say you entered with 31 skill boosts. You need 25 to transform the first time. Those extra 6 skill boosts are not actually going to do anything for you because skill boosts only affect your actives when you enter a dungeon for the very first time. So you'll be quote-unquote more vulnerable during these interim 6 turns of your first transitional step. And that definitely can be a bit of a problem because both of the leaders only have 2.25 times health, but a big 75% damage reduction, but this damage reduction hinges on actually having 5 water or 6 wood orbs. So you could be a little vulnerable because Royal Oak and Nautilus are your primary orb changers, and they don't actually give you orb changers until they really transform for the final time. So this definitely can be a bit of a hurdle. With that being said, if you do utilize delays or hastes, you can kind of cut down this 6-turn window of a bit more vulnerability a little more easily. If they are delayed, well, they're not attacking you, easy to stall. If you have haste, well, that's instantaneous effective skill boost, so to speak. So a bit of creativity may need to be exercised, and it all, of course, depends on the dungeon you're actually playing through. If the dungeon you're playing through has a very non-dangerous floor one, less of a hurdle overall. So, with that being said, I want to take a look at each of these 2 Godfest exclusives in a little bit more detail, but just remember in the back of your head that they all have this transforming requirement. So, Royal Oak, once he is fully transformed, becomes a monstrously powerful card. Big surprise there. So, they have 3 L Awakenings, a 10 combo, and 2 VDPs. So this doesn't necessarily have very good synergy with themselves, so that definitely can be a little problematic. But if you take a look at their leader skill itself and active skill, it kind of compensates for that. So their active skill is a 2-turn cooldown, which will give you plus 10% attack for each L Awakening on your team. Drawback of L's is a little harder to stack, so the attack boost may not be as magical as you might be hoping. But let's say hypothetically you have 2 Royal Oaks and then you have 4 other L's somewhere across your team because it makes my math much easier. You'd have 10 L's, which means you would receive a 2 times damage boost every single turn because this is a systemable active skill. You can use 1 Royal Oak and 1 Nautilus or 1 Royal Oak every single turn, and you would enjoy, if you had 10 L's, an effective 2 times attack bonus permanently. So now their attack multiplier becomes 4 times health, 800 effective attack, 1 times recovery, and 75% damage reduction with plus 6 combos and 10 million auto follow-up attack when you match 5 or more connected water orbs. So this active skill changes fire to water and wood to heal. So every turn you're making more water orbs. So it's going to be quite unlikely you won't have 5 water orbs from a given board. When you think about it, there are 30 orbs that can fall down, and you use water and you quote-unquote use fire because fire does get converted to water. So 2 out of the 6 elements that can fall down, you only need 5 of them in total, so it should be quite doable to have enough every turn. And with the +6 combos, this 10 combo awakening actually takes off, and they have a gigantic attack stat, so they're going to be dishing out monstrous amounts of damage, and your subs are probably going to be hitting quite hard as well. So damage should no longer be an issue, and this massive 10 million auto follow-up attack aspect means you can actually overcome resolve spawns of relative ease, including, say, A10 and AA4, or more notably, the Dragon Seed in World of Carnage 2, which is impossible for water teams to kill without a defense break or large amounts of auto follow-up attack. So this saves some team building strengths. You don't have to like put in Hoppo. Hoppo still could be used, but Hoppo's main appeal to a certain extent was that defense break for the Dragon Seed. So all in all, this is obviously a wonderfully strong leader, but the main drawbacks are, as I mentioned, this extra transformational step, and L's being a little bit more awkward. You can't stack L's as easily. Nautilus relies on rows. Rows are much more easily found. They bolster the damage output for the entire team, whereas L's only help the owning card. So it's not to say that like damage is going to be an issue, it's just that it's going to be less easy to produce in spectacular numbers compared to, say, Nautilus by comparison. And then all their forms, including Nautilus as well, are going to be vulnerable to bind. So this can definitely be corrected. You can easily slap on a bind immune weapon assist and you're going to be okay. So that's not as big of a drawback, but just something to be aware in the back of your mind. So as a whole, amazingly strong leader, but you do need to be aware that you have 1x RCV, which means you are going to need to use a healing solution. So something with an enhanced hard orb awakening or multiple enhanced hard orb awakenings will probably be mandatory. Now let's take a look at Nautilus. Similar idea to Royal Oak. 25 turns to transform the first time, second time 6 turn cooldown, and then that 6 turns, you're a little bit more vulnerable, so to speak. But then when you finally transform, wow, a monstrously strong card. So let us take a look at what they do. So a very similar kit to Royal Oak, but instead of L's, they have lots of rows, and they have more VDPs, and no personal damage outside of VDP. So this definitely could seem like a bit of a drawback. You don't have personal damage unless you have 9 wood orbs. A little bit of a hindrance for sure, but your attack multiplier is way higher by comparison, and the active skill, the attack buff, is much easier to stack. So the attack buff, or their active skill, gives you a 10% increase for each wood row on the team. Nautiluses together have 8. So let's say hypothetically you have a Zila hat. Just one Zila hat. It's probably going to be one on each leader if you really think about it, but one Zila hat. You will then have 12 wood rows, which means 2.2 times attack all the time, which in turn means you will have an effective 1,267 times attack for the entire team. And you also get the bonus damage from the rows themselves and the 7 combos if applicable, which means you are probably going to be hitting damage cap with relative ease across potentially your entire team, and maybe even Nautilus themselves if you form that sweet VDP. Damage is not going to be an issue with this team. So you also get the same orb changer of converting something to wood and then something else to heart. So you have a steady flow of wood orbs. As long as you have at least 6 wood and or light orbs on the board present, you're going to activate your full attack multiplier. Big damage reduction of 75%. And like I said, both of these cards have 16 times effective health with 4 times health and 75% damage reduction. It means you can survive basically any hit in the game. The need to bring damage reduction is probably quite low, because if you think about it, nothing is really going to kill you outside of outrageously large executes. The ogres or even guilds attack well below 50% ability will not be a problem for these two teams, which again frees up more team building options and capabilities. Now, all of this sounds great and magical, and it definitely is, but you have to be mindful of the fact that you have only 1 times RCV, so something like Alnia can definitely solve that issue. She hasn't been fully buffed yet, so maybe Super Reincarnated Series might be a suitable alternative in the interim, but you can basically load up on basically whatever cards you really want. As long as you can transform in a timely manner, your subs are going to be dishing out monstrous amounts of damage. You have enough VDP potential with your 2 leaders, so there's not too much downsides with this team overall, because bonus combos come naturally with the leader skill, massive auto follow-up attack. It's, to a certain extent, kind of brainless almost when you really think about it. So amazingly strong leader overall, but just be mindful of the fact that they have to transform a second time. They're vulnerable to binds in this form, and without 6 wood orbs you do have no damage reduction, but again, 6 wood orbs should definitely be achievable. So let's take a look at the rolling pool here. So this image was crafted by Onion through SubakiBot, wonderful individual overall, and if you take a look at it closer, it looks like, wow, we have a 60.5% chance of getting a Pantheon card, which means we have No, we have a 59.65% chance. So you have a 40.5% chance of getting a good card. But of those good cards, 5 are Samurai 3. And Samurai 3 are strong, but if it's the first time, if you've acquired them already, the value definitely goes down. Having 2 or 3 copies of them is really not truly necessary. 2 definitely helps in terms of freeing up how often you need to assist them, but 3, I just feel like, is it really going to make that much of a difference? Probably not. So, like I mentioned, the value of this Super Godfest is definitely going to hinge on how many Samurai 3 cards you have. If you have none of them, all the cards up here will be valuable, but if you already have these 5, duplicates don't serve much purpose. A duplicate Godfest exclusive is fine because they end up being trade fodder, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, what is my plan for this Godfest? Well, based on what I've said, it's not that appealing for myself for either of my accounts because I have the Samurai 3s on both my accounts. So if I do roll, it'd probably be quite sparingly, probably a peer pressured style thing when I do stream, but I don't really feel like it's worth rolling in because, like I said, it's as bad as it's going to get from a Godfest exclusive point of view. And another small nitpick, I guess, is that all the Pantheon cards come out as reincarnated, not super reincarnated. They don't always come out super reincarnated, but if they did, it saves a tremendous amount of resources for new players and even more veteran players because it is quite a big sink to get something from reincarnate to super reincarnate or even to their weapon assist. But with that being said, this is still a reasonable Godfest to roll in, especially if you don't have Samurai 3 cards. So, in conclusion, Royal Oak and Nautilus are 2 unbelievably strong and powerful Godfest exclusives. They can lead tremendously potent teams that can clear all levels of content, and they're just so safe to play. I think about it, if you can't really die, you're probably going to eventually clear the dungeon. So, that in turn gives them a certain edge with that 16 times effective health. But with that being said, let me know what you think about these cards in the comments below. Do you think you are going to actually be rolling in this Super Godfest? And if you did end up rolling, was it a successful venture? Either way, hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.